Father, brother Jesus, we're gathered together with Stuart and Ari and each other to understand more the supremacy of your universe, how we can be a part in the building of the Supreme as the Supreme builds us. And we just want to be awake and alive and alert and loving and joyful with all you give us. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you, Michael. That was wonderful. All right. Well, listen, guys, I'm so glad to see you all. I embrace all of you. You guys are all courageous because this is quite a topic that we're going to be getting into. But I do want to reiterate, you don't have to be masters of this information. We're all going to get it in our discussion. So wherever you're coming in, from whatever situation that we're getting into this course, don't feel overwhelmed by it. We're not going to, nobody's going to get overwhelmed. We're going to take it in a procession way, and we're going to have, I hope, some really good discussions. I mean, I'm looking at Mike, you're shaking your head up and down. Mike knows my style because every time I do a cafe, Mike gets right in there and participates. A lot of you guys do that, so I love you all for doing that. First, I want to go around and ask for everybody one at a time, say who you are, where are you from, and what has been your involvement with this Urantia book? And I'm going to start with the guy I see first. Michael Hagan, you did the prayer. Could you tell us who you are, from where you come from, and how you just a general understanding of your relationship with the Urantia book?
Michael Hagan. I live in San Jose, California. I've been reading the book for over 50 years. I retired about 17 years ago, did a lot of things that I wanted to do. And finally, I got to a point when I said to myself, I'm not doing service anymore. I did service as a teacher, and it's not happening anymore. And I prayed to the angels. And the next thing you know, I was writing stories I just couldn't imagine I could be able to do. And then working with prisoners for the self-directed studies of the Adventure book. So I just delight in service now, and that's my whole growing life.
Oh, thank you, Michael. That was perfect. Uh, I'm going to go next to Darlene Sartori to let you guys know I met with Darlene in a study group almost like 40 years ago in Evansville, Indiana. So we had our own study group there that was a lot of fun, and we're very energetic. So she is a good colleague and a friend of mine as well. So Darlene, please, where are you from, and what is your relationship with this blue book?
Okay. Well, I live in southern Indiana, near Princeton, rural area of Princeton, Indiana. The Bay Papers found me in 1959 era, thanks to Julia Fenderson bringing them to my neighbor's house, and with that big blue book in her hand, and me as a teenager and her daughter as a teenager there that she brought it to. And she introduced us and included us right in with their conversation with her friend, and invited us to read something called The Life and Teachings of Jesus. And she said, that's something you girls should start with. And so that's where I was introduced to. And then shortly after that, my family was shipped to Japan. My father was in the military. And so I've chased the book around all over the world, and it's chased me. So I'm just delighted to be a part of this internet now that we've got to be able to reach out. And I'm just so grateful. This is like a vision of what we talked about when we were in Evansville. This is the way it's starting to go. And it's taken a long time, but it's been worth the wait.
Oh, that's great, Darlene. I really appreciate it. I'm glad to see you here today. I want to welcome my good friend Royce Russell and Aline Vick, who is probably one of the dearest human beings you will ever meet in your life. Every time, look at her smile. Every time she smiles, she radiates. And Aline, that's your special gift. You radiate with smiles. So I love you for that. I'm going to go to the next one. Janice, would you please tell us a little bit about yourself as well?
Okay. I got the book about 15 years ago. I was living in a spiritual community for 25 years. And our book of study was the Course in Miracles. So we did that every day. We had a group of people that lived together. Actually, it was international. We had lots of different places in the world. We had centers, but that was my life then. And about 15 years ago, I got introduced to the Urantia book. And I've been reading it ever since. And I've been reading it before COVID, of course, face-to-face groups, but then after COVID in Zoom groups. And I love all the different Zoom groups. I love the one right out of the forum. I love them. And I love all the minds that sitting around here that are 50 years of reading and what they understand. It's just amazing. I just love it. And that's why I wanted to come today, because and I talked to my good friend yesterday, Barbara Newsom, and she's read it for 60 years. I think she read it longer than you. Been reading longer than you. But anyway, she said, well, if I was doing a class, which she doesn't have time to do, I would do the one on the Supreme, because everything else is about what already is. The Supreme is what is coming. And she said, that's what I'd like. So she asked me to please share with her.
Oh, no, thank you, Janice. That's wonderful. I'm so excited about today, and I'm so glad to see everybody here. So I'm going to go next. Dearest Carolyn, you actually answered some questions. I just want to thank you for your enthusiasm, and I'm glad to see you. And could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I want to thank Ari because she helped me at the end and was very, very quick to respond. We solved everything. So I live in southern Michigan, southeastern Michigan, in a town called Chelsea near Ann Arbor. Everybody knows where Ann Arbor is usually. And I'm originally from Texas. Got out of the state to go to grad school and met my husband there, and we moved to Michigan. I have 3 sons, and I'm stuck here because they don't want to move to Texas. But other than the cold weather, I like it. But I started reading the Urantia book almost 20 years ago. I was going on a spiritual trip to Israel. I've done a lot of I grew up in I'm sorry if I'm rambling. I grew up in a Baptist preacher's house and didn't agree with it. And when I got away from home, I just had to, I read everything I could because I wanted to find a true description of God that I could accept. And it took years and years for me to find that. But when I found the Urantia book, at first I just read the Jesus part because I was going to Israel. And then when I flipped back and started reading the forward, although I'm not going to say that I understood it at first, but I could see the beauty of the organization. And that's something that that really appeals to me. And so I've kept at it. I haven't felt the need to go beyond that, although I have done some other studies during the process. Was it Janice that mentioned the Course in Miracles? And I found that that's helpful it helps me get closer to my thought adjuster to clear the cobwebs out of my head. And so I kind of use them together, but I find almost every page I read in the Urantia book, it has something very similar to what the Course in Miracles says. So I have no argument with Course in Miracles at all. It has been very helpful to me. And I'm really excited about this course. I looking forward to learning a lot more.
Oh, that's wonderful, Carolyn. Thank you for that. And I'm glad to see you here as well. And let me emphasize to everybody, don't be overwhelmed by what I did in the handout for this course. Wherever you come in, even if you're a first-time reader, We're not going to get anybody overwhelmed in this. And don't feel like you can't handle all of this, because we're going to take it in a loving way that we will all support one another. I have found that in a community of souls like this page now, that we help each other to understand things, and we come to a leveling area of spiritual insight that we can share. So I'm glad to see all of you. And as I said, do not feel overwhelmed at any time. Come in, we'll have our discussions, and it will be fun. So I'm going to go next to Dale Ann. Could you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Hi, Stuart. Um, hello. I have been reading the book, I guess, for over 50 years now. I was a part of Urantia book community in California for a while. I started out in Kansas City, Missouri with Isla and Lauren Hall many, many years ago. They are no longer alive. I now live in Connecticut. I started reading A Course in Miracles also about over 40 years ago. So both of those books have been very influential in my life. What one doesn't cover, the other does for me. And that has really, A Course in Miracles has taught me a lot about how to open my heart. And the Urantia book has taught me so many, 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 many things. The most important, I think, is just a living experience of Jesus and what an amazing life he led. And how he just inspires me every moment of every day. But also, of course, just everything else that the book covers, evolution and all the details of the miracle of it. And I was just thinking about that the other day, watching a nature program and thinking how extraordinary and wise they were, and how they developed, how things evolved physically on this planet. It's just extraordinary. Oh, I know what it was. This morning I was watching something about how trees intercommunicate. And I thought, oh my God, how they planned everything. It's just extraordinary. Anyway, what else can I say? Stuart, you know me pretty well.
Yes, I do.
I was in the Connecticut Society with Stuart many years
Yes,
ago.
yes.
And
Yeah, and I remember, it was such an exciting thing that, when I first came on board, I'm trying to remember her name. She was the president at that time and wrote David and Ruth. Uh, well,
oh, Elena Sprague.
yeah,
Elena Sprague. Yeah.
yeah, and she actually had the gumption to recommend me to become president. So I did serve a term as president, and it was at that troubling time when the foundation put out a letter of loyalty, and you have to sign it and all of that. And we went a year figuring out what our true position was regarding that letter. And I think we ended up becoming part of the new fellowship, because a lot of the societies were not willing to write that letter. But it was a hard time for all of us, soul searching.
It was. I left for a little while and then came back because I was so burnt out on the politics.
Yes.
And then something in me, I wonder what, led me back. So
well, I'm glad to see you here. Thank you so much. And I got good brother Rick. Sorry, not Rick, Jack. Jack Miller. My brain there just didn't work for a second.
Hey, everybody. I'm here in sunny South Florida, driving up to Orlando for a birthday weekend. I've been reading the Urantia book for about 40 years. And several years ago, we went through the same thing. We were forming society when the whole breakup started. Kind of went non-affiliated. A few years back, we kind of switched to non-affiliated. We're now a society down here. I retired about a year ago to write a book. I'm having a great time writing it. I'm hoping I'll have it out published within the next 2 months. I'm just about done with it and having a great time. Loving the Urantia book. Stuart, I enjoy your method of teaching. So I'm always willing to sit here and listen to your wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate the reinforcement there. It makes me feel real good. And I've got another good friend, Mike. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Uh, my name is Mike Clark. I live in Paris, Texas. And I literally stumbled over the book 1976, but I really didn't. I found a tutor, a teacher in 2014, and yeah, it was very helpful. A man by the name of John Pierre Houtier. Somebody all may know him, little Frenchman. Yeah, the supreme being. The first time I saw it in this text, I remember the term because somewhere distantly in my Catholic upbringing, Catholic school, whole 9 yards, big Catholic family, that term, the supreme being, I'd seen it. Obviously, I had no idea what it meant. I just thought it meant God. But that's been one of the biggest revelations that I've well, there are more than just one or two in this text. It certainly has opened up. It's opened up the universe, and I mean all the way to infinity. So I'm glad I found it. Thank you, Stu.
Mike, I'm glad to see you here. I know you're going to be a wonderful contributor to our discussions, and I thank you. I'm going to next go to Cher. Dear Cher, tell us about yourself.
Sorry, couldn't. I found the book in 2020 after watching a piece on evil on our planet. It was a continued teaching, and the teacher mentioned the Sea of Glass. And I was intrigued, and he talked about the Lucifer Rebellion. And when I heard that, after being a Christian since I was 16, I don't remember the exact year, 1970, I believe, and I had got my theology degree and my ministry degree in the 90s. And I ran hard after God for many, many years, did music and teaching and, going out and doing street ministry and stuff. But the more I dove into my Bible and the Greek and Hebrew, the more frustrated I became. And I finally stepped away from the Bible when my mom passed. It was a very hard time when you lose your best friend. And I started looking at every religion around the world, every belief system, practiced them, researched them. Meantime, I was writing 3 novels, and I won 9 awards for them. They were young adult novels, and I did my own illustrating. And I'm a musician that, I just do it for my own sake now, enjoying it. I'm too old to be on stage. And because I was always with groups and loved supporting the groups, and we'd go out and do the ministry. But when I found the Urantia book through this in 2020, it was July 2020. I ordered one, got it beginning of August 2020, and started reading the 4 sections at the same time. I started in the foreword, didn't quite get it, didn't understand any of the terms, didn't understand that there was more than just the Trinity because I learned doctrinal Christianity. And I have taken to listening to the book with my iPhones. I wore out one of my iPhones. I just got a new one with my plugins, and I do it about 25, 30 hours a week, because the only way I will reprogram my thinking is through repetition, repetition, repetition. So that's what I've done. I've got all 6 of Stuart's books, and I'm starting to chew on this one. And I am so thankful I found this.
Yes.
Oh, this clarified my stupidity about God, the absolute, the unqualified, and it really helps with the supreme being.
And Bill Sadler is my hero, Cher. I mean, I have over 100 hours of his lectures that I have listened to much of my life. And I just wanted to share with you that I have also spent my life investigating all the world religions, from Buddhism to Taoism to Hinduism. I've read the Quran translations, liberal and conservative translations of the Quran. And I did all of this before getting the Urantia book, because I wanted to understand what the world, religious experience was with God. And I didn't want to get it from one perspective. I wanted to get it from all. Anything more, Cher, before I go on?
I just wanted to say all the world's religions and beliefs were hollow. They never matched up to the Urantia papers. When I read them, they cheered my heart and thrilled me, and I love the language, and I can't get enough of them.
Oh, we are fellow embracers of this revelation. So good to have you share. I'm going to go to next, Jane. Please tell us a little bit about who you are.
I am from Toronto, and I was introduced to this group by Mike Clark, and I have a lot in common actually with Cher. So I have a bit of that background in probably for 40 years, I was completely immersed in my Catholic faith and always searching to get to know Jesus better. And I must have read so many books, I couldn't tell you how many, all had to be about Jesus. That's all I wanted to know. And I also listened to some and read many well scholars, you know, and the name of Melchizedek comes up. And no matter how much I searched, I really couldn't find much answers until one day I'm searching and searching, and the Urantia book came up. And I read what Google gave me on that. And that was sufficient for me to run to the bookstore and order a book, because it was new information and it captivated me right away. Right away, I was hooked. This is something I need to own. Anyway, and I picked it up. I read a few things. I went back and ordered 2 more books, blindly at this point, really, for 2 special men that I knew they are searching. And I found in my own intuition, I would say, because it's not knowledge at this point, that there is an answer here, that there is an answer to the questions, that there is more than we can ever totally comprehend, but that this is something we need. Anyway, so I did that, and that would be approximately 16 years ago. And only since COVID, I don't know how, maybe I registered my email somewhere, and I was invited to join a study group, a Zoom study group with David Glass, which I've been doing now. It's more than a couple of years. And however, since I'm going to say I have not dropped the book, I continue to study, learn, and completely devote myself to its learning. And I'm very thankful for everyone. And there is so much. And there is, I have to say one thing about the reading and learning the Urantia book. I find it removes all walls, for me anyway, that I can communicate with any religion. I can communicate with, it doesn't matter what people believe in. We have something in common. We can talk about their God, their philosophy, their theology. And so that's a special gift. So I'm very thankful.
Oh, thank you, Jane. I appreciate it so much. I do, before I continue on, Carolyn asked a question. Cher, you just showed my book, but only for a second. Could you let people see it? This is my life work. It's called God, Man, and Supreme, Origin and Destiny. And this is my lifelong work and focus. It's about 500 pages, and it is available on Amazon, but it's expensive because it's print to order. It's about $85. But to anybody who would like to get an electronic version, I can send them my Google Drive download that I can let you download the whole book itself. So if you send me an email and ask for that download, I will give you my Google Drive download so that you can get the whole book, because 85 bucks is a lot. But I'm so glad. Oh yeah, there's some more. Cher, you're incredible. I love that you have so much interest in it. But thank you so much, Jane. I'm going to go next to Royce.
Stuart, can I ask you a question about that? What
Absolutely.
is your email address and is it available on Kindle cheaper?
It is, and you can go to Amazon. You'll see all the possibilities of getting it. My
Okay.
email, everybody, and I'll say it slowly, is Kerr, Kerr, Stewart, Stuart, 56 at yahoo.com. Okay.
And the title of the book again is what?
God, Man, and Supreme dash Origin and Destiny. So you can go into the Amazon search and see what
Yeah.
possibilities are to get your handle on it, or just ask me and I'll give you my download prompt for the book.
Stuart,
Thank you.
could you repeat the first part? Is it just Stuart Kerr on your
No, it's
email?
Kerr Stewart, KERRSTUART 56
Right. Yeah.
at yahoo.com.
Thanks.
All right, let's continue on. I got Royce Russell. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first off, I have to say I'm very intrigued and very impressed by the caliber and group of people gathered here today. I've not heard in any of the study groups I've been in such dogged, rugged veterans in pursuit of truth and who would not give up no matter what came across their road. They just kept going and going and going, and they finally found it. I'm very impressed and very interesting. And my hats and applaud off to all of you. This is an impressive group. Um, I stumbled across it in the early '80s with my landlord, and he would bring up things and ideas, and I'm like, where the hell are you getting this from? Like, why are you talking like this? Why are you saying this? And he would say, oh, it's all in the book. I'm like, what book? What are you talking about? He was so stingy and give me such piecemeal information. It just irritated me. And I finally said, look, he says, I'm gonna lend you the book for 2 weeks. I lived upstairs. And I said, okay. So I finally got to have this in my hand. I went upstairs, I went to the Jesus papers because, like most of you, I'm a surviving backsliding Catholic school survivor. And I went right to the lessons from the cross. And as soon as I read that, it just took everything I knew and flipped it over and just smacked me right between the eyes. And I had to put the book down because I had to chew on what I just read. And it took a while, but the logic of it just made so much sense. And I was mad at all of my Christian upbringing because I couldn't believe that they made me swallow all that nonsense. But then I was mad at myself because it was like that was right in front of me, right here on my nose, and I didn't see it, and I was mad at myself. Um, but from that point on, I've read the book piecemeal here and there, whatever. But I've dabbled in it since then. I was very active in California in study groups and putting on symposiums, weekend retreats, and all of this with a Polly Friedman, who was a long running person and well established and knew just everybody under the sun who was even remotely connected with Hugh Rancher. Uh, I moved back east. I retired from FedEx, and when I did that, I said, now I can just devote more time to this. I get so much joy and pleasure, meaning, satisfaction, and I have to say, I cannot see the world through any other lens other than this blue filter, which is the color of most Urantia books. Those tinted glasses are always on. I can't get away from them. I'm intrigued to hear about three of you going with Marianne Williamson. The what was it called again? The uh,
Course in Miracles.
Course in Miracles. Yes, my landlord, for some reason, he seemed to look, and he gave me the book. He didn't keep the book anyway. He let me have it, so I didn't have to give it back in 2 weeks. I he seemed to come to the book, and it wasn't enough for him. It seemed to him it was just a bunch of dry knowledge put together. And he was more on a quest of how to, as some people here have mentioned, open up his heart, have a almost tool chest and means by which he could make this heart connection on a daily basis with people. So it's curious that at least three of you that I know of have that dual lens of the book and the Course in Miracles. And I haven't read the book, but I'm seeing it that it seems to be a daily tool and a workable method of how to try to achieve that which I guess should be the gestalt end of reading of the book. That now that you're filled with this new insight and have this new quest for generating and creating more love inside of you and being a conduit of God to other people, that might be a handy, I'm curious on the feedback from you people who've done that. But it seems to me that's what it is, but I don't know. But I find the book fascinating. I've looked for it my entire life. I'm so happy and lucky that I found it. I can't even imagine what my life would have been without it. And I'd have to say, I don't want to cause too much embarrassment, but of all the people I've come in contact with, study groups, seminars, whatever, the person who has been the most informative, the most giant fountain geyser of knowledge and insight and just making this understandable and as a great person beside is Stu. So almost everything he does, I want to be part of it. I see now that I'm slightly behind in my library because someone has more books and research and things that he's done that I do. So I'm a little jealous. Uh, but I'm glad to be here, glad to meet all of you, and I look forward to the class.
And just real quickly, I just want to tell everybody here, one of the absolute best friends I have in this whole world is my good brother, Royce. So just to know that there is a connection between he and I of just a true soul bond. And I do want to say, let's keep things short here because I do want to get into the lesson. Dalen, you had a quick comment you wanted to add?
Yeah, just a very quick comment. When you referred to A Course in Miracles, I just think this includes the Arancha book and anything else. One person's perception of something is often only their perception. And I would say A Course in Miracles has taught me how to open my heart and how to love more than anything else I've ever read, except the Arancha book. But they address different aspects of that. I would never use one without the other. Neither one of them is the whole thing. And I don't think any book, including the Arancha book, contains everything we need. The Arancha book is only, even though it's big, it's still only 2,000 pages. Do we think we can fit all of reality into 2,000 pages? I hope not.
Well, thank you,
You know.
Dale. And again, I'm going to go, let's keep it short because I'm anxious to get into our study today. But we have Aline Vick, the dear, sweet lady and a wonderful person. Aline, tell us who you are.
Well, I have been like Stuart, searching all my life, but I don't have Stuart's ability to search quite so deep. But the two things I always wanted to know since I was 14 was who is Jesus, because I knew the church was not giving me the whole picture. And I wanted to know how the universe works. And when I found the Urantia book, oh, then I found who Jesus really is. And I got all I needed to know about how the universe works. So this has been my gift to answer my questions all my life. And then the real gift was connecting me with what we call the teaching mission. So I speak every day, to Father Michael, Mother Spirit, Makaventa von Johnson, and the list goes on. That's how I start my day every day. So This has been a real gift for me in every way, changed my whole life.
Oh, thank you, Aline. That is so wonderful. And again, I'm glad to see you here. We have a few more people here. Let's get through this quickly. We've got Angela Estevez. Would you please, I'm sorry, first, John, you're next on the queue. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, John, born and raised in Chicagoland area, came down to Florida about 22 years ago. A friend of mine in 2000 introduced me to the book. I read it through once, really liked what I read, and I didn't really get involved then. I was, I believed in a divine being, the I am. I was born and raised a Christian from the Roman Catholic point of view, and any Christian explanation, old Christian explanation of the Trinity really just was miserable as far as I was concerned. So I felt like I was kind of on an island. But the Urantia book really just opened up my mind, and that's about it.
Oh, that's great, John. I'm glad to have you here. Angela Estevez is a good friend of mine for a long time, and she's a wonderful lady. Angela, would you please tell everybody who you are?
Yes, so let me say that experience in this life widely. I came from Brazil. I live in this country for 35 years. And since I was 6, I'm very curious about how the universe was formed, what exactly are the stars, and where did you come from? And then I start learning about religion, and I start searching for God, the one that I could understand. And it took me a while, many years, but I went to several churches. Each one made sense at the beginning and then did not. Ended up with the Unity Church, where we had Urantia book meetings on a Wednesday. I couldn't join them because I was working, so as soon as I retired, I joined the meeting. I could have started reading before, but everybody was telling me it was so difficult. But anyways, and Urantia really answered all the questions I ever had. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. That's wonderful. And our last two, we've got Lee Culver and then Donald Beauchamp.
Yes, hi. I found the book the book found me actually in 1987. Previous to that, I had a supernatural experience which led me to search for God, and I did so kind of externally. So I was searching all the different organized religions, and I participated in all kinds of study groups and different kinds of things. My origin is Jewish in nature, and I did read the Bible, and I was part of study groups and so forth. And I recognized shards of truth in many of the different faiths, but I couldn't wholeheartedly agree to any one of them. And one day, about 1987, it was, I believe, I got frustrated. It was the first time that I had asked God that I needed to go. Where did I need to go? Because I could not subscribe to any one of these formal religions wholeheartedly. I had saw shards of truth, but I couldn't say that I needed to follow this one or that one. So I got down on my hands and knees, threw a Bible out the window on a stormy day, and then 2 weeks later, I'm not going to go to the whole story, but kind of a miraculous story, basically. I got the Urantia book, and I thumbed through the contents of the papers, and I'm like, wow, I had never seen a material that had described deity in such, replete terms, 2,000 pages of deity. I'm like, wow, this is an amazing thing. So it was actually Bill Godfrey who I tripped and got his book. He gave me his personal copy of the Urantia book. He was in a study group. I didn't know that at the time. He gave me his personal copy of the Urantia book, and I started reading it, and my truth bells were going off the hook. I did not understand why my truth bells were going off the hook. But after reading it, it was like, well, okay, now I understand. It was between the thought adjuster and the spirit of truth. that's what's helping my truth bells, say that this really is a true material. As far as the Supreme, I believe that the Supreme, the thought adjuster, the spirit of truth, and the Supreme are some of the best revelations to me. They really strike, and the Supreme actually, because I'm more abstract in nature, the Supreme to me is more tangible than to most people. So I see the Supreme as the ultimate revelation in terms of what we can understand, at least on this universe age. But it also ties into the ultimate as well. But anyways, that's my story. I've also been in 6 different physical study groups over the years. I'm now in 2 different study groups. In fact, two of the people here, I'm in different study groups. I'm in their study groups. So this is great. And I think the Zoom is a great tool for people to connect. And I feel that this is my religious, spiritual family. I could say this is where I get my spiritual sustenance from. So thank you, Stuart. I have been in some of your lectures and talks, and you are a great purveyor of your Rancho wisdom. So keep it up. And I think most of us agree that, you are a complete asset to the Urantia community. Thank you again.
Oh, thank you for your encouragement. Okay, let's get into it. I'm going to start the share because we have a lot of reading, and I'm going to ask on the Urantia book citations that we're going to read, that Royce, you get to the citations when we get it. Would you kindly do that when we get to it? So let me go to share, and we will start. And now wait for everybody to get on so you can see it.
There you go.
Okay, good. So the course is called The Emergence of the Supreme Being, and it's 8 classes long, which are broken down. And if you looked at my introduction video that you can get, take a look at that, and every time remind yourself a little bit about that aspect. Let me go over here and go down. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the course. You've already seen it in the UUI paperwork, but I'm going to read this first. The supremacy of deity is functioning right now in our own finite reality of time and space. That's the shortest way of introducing it. It is on this level of time-space conditioned deity expression that we seek personal identification with our Father in paradise. A level that encompasses the activity of, quote, man finding God and God finding man. That's right out of the book. The creature becoming perfect as the creator. That's a beautiful way of putting it. It is on this level of the Supreme that personalities throughout the grand universe begin their quest to find their true identity in the Father's love. It is here that we begin our endless journey to find eternity and to explore infinity. What a quest this is. This is a search for finding the Father and for becoming perfect, as the Father is absolutely perfect. This is the supreme challenge, to bring the perfection of eternity and the divinity of paradise out into the evolutionary domains of time and space, domains of unsettled physical development, of imperfect nature and potential evil, where creatures of imperfection make their appearance. The actualizing supreme being is compelled to express himself as a sub-eternal personality by virtue of his own emerging will and purpose, and distributing his now emerging self to the time-space creations. He grows as we grow as he grows. The emerging being expands with the evolutionary universes and identifies with all creature growth. God the Supreme is finite He is not existential. There is a time before creation that he did not exist, but he is now in the process of emergence and is therefore comprehensible, and this is very important, to finite creatures. When we read the Urantia book, when we read about existential realities, it takes a while for us to absorb all of that detail and information, but not so with God the Supreme. He's like us. He grows, he evolves. We can never fully comprehend the fullness of the universal Father because he's pre-personal, personal, and super-personal. There's a lot about the Father that is beyond our comprehension. But we can all one day understand the Supreme Being because, like us, he has an origin. He has growth and he has a destiny. He can achieve completion of perfection. The Supreme Being is God as finite creatures can understand him. Our inability ever to really know the Father in all of his attributes is compensated by our sometime ability to know the Supreme Being. It takes infinite understanding to know an infinite God. We will understand the Supreme and we will be expository of the Supreme. When he emerges in full perfection, we will become ambassadors of time-space perfection because we will become 7 stage finaliters along with his emergence. And we will become now on a new adventure of searching for the ultimate. That's a lot, but just get a feel for it. I always start off the class with a quotation. And I'm going to ask Royce, would you please read this citation from paper 117?
Yes. The Supreme Being did not create man, but man was literally created out of. His very life was derived from the potentiality of the Supreme. Nor does he evolve man. Yet is the Supreme himself the very essence of evolution. From the finite standpoint, we actually live, move, and have our being within the immanence of the Supreme.
That's an amazing statement. That really is. It is such a good summary that it's a good way for us to start. And I'm going to go in here. I have said I am not a disciplinarian. There's a lot of planned readings here that I would suggest that you get connected with and understand to some degree. But this is not a class where you're going to get, a slap on the hands if you don't do this. This is just now here for the first class. We're going to, all of these sections here are germane to the understanding of the instructional to class 1, which we are going to do in just a moment. But I have it in here. These are suggested readings that should help you understand. Now, here's the instructional, and we're going to do instructional followed by questions and then discussions. The first section is the supremacy of deity. What does that mean? And Royce, I'm going to ask you to please read this citation.
I just read that.
Oh, okay.
I just read that.
You're right. All right. The supremacy of deity is fun. Okay, I'm going to skip this because I just read this in our overview. Here we go. You can start with this then, Royce.
Okay. Sooner or later, we all become aware that all creature growth is proportional to father identification. We arrive at the understanding that living the will of God is the eternal passport to the endless possibility of infinity itself.
Once again, this language is beautiful. I've never read such beautiful statements of concept before, and that's why I am so enthralled with this revelation. Now, the triune realities of spirit, mind, and energy proceed from the deity acts of the Paradise Trinity and are time-space unified within the deity of the Supreme. That's sort of an emphasis to get a general sense. We swim within the ocean of time-space supremacy. The 2 phases of universe reality, the spiritual presence of the universal Father and the eternal Son, along with the energy manifestations of the material cosmos, are correlated in the mind circuit of the infinite spirit, the third person of the Trinity, and are becoming unified, and this is important, with the emerging deity of the Supreme Being. It's sort of a collective of all of this effort of potentials becoming actuals and perfecting in process. At this level of the Supreme, deity is self-experiential. That's an interesting term. Power-personalizing and creature-creator unifying. That's a huge span of scope and purpose. Perfection must be achieved in time and space throughout the process of personal experience. And we're all part of that energy, that process. In order for a supreme reality to become actually real, it must first become experienced. Before we experience it, it's only potential. When we experience it, now it becomes part of the actualization of the nature of the Supreme. The perfection of the Supreme Being is experienced in reality through the total commitments, the totality of it, and efforts of each and every personality in the grand universe. We're our collective energy that is centered within this growing emergence of the deity level of supremacy. Creator sons strive to bring their local universe creations into the power of light and life. Men and women strive for personal perfection by the free will creature creator identification with the perfect Father. The power of personal effort must be put forth in power personalizing, person and energy power emergence, and creature creator unifying. These are great goals, comes to fruition. The gradual emergence of the person of the Supreme Being reciprocates by reinforcing these efforts. He is thus afforded the opportunity to contribute to his own emergence. And this makes him self-experiential, not existential. This supreme level of deity reality is driven by the purposed over-control of absolute paradise reality. And this divine process is being carried out under the directive urge of the evolving Supreme Being. The experiential evolution of the Supreme Being is made possible as a direct consequence of the Universal Father's absolute decision to free himself from the bonds of infinity and the fetters of eternity. That's an interesting concept, which I would love to have continued discussion on. Continue on with this one, Royce, please.
In the deity of the Supreme, the Father I Am has achieved relatively complete liberation from the limitations inherent in infinity of status, eternity of being, and absoluteness of nature.
Great. Now, however, there is a price to pay for the Supreme's freedom. The existence of the Supreme has now become subject to the experiential qualifications of universal function in the confines of space and the barriers of time. Goals and ideals do not happen except by the gradual process of time. And what may be achieved now in this locality of space of ours may often require achievement in time in some other locality of space. It's a totalizing process. The Father's liberation from eternity is achieved through the evolution of the Supreme Being. But he achieves this only at the cost of the non-absoluteness of the Supreme Being. Remember, he's experiential, he is finite in origin. But this moment in time, the actualized existence of the Supreme Being is necessarily partial. And the final nature of the Supreme Being is at present incomplete. On the other hand, this evolutionary experiential status of the Supreme makes it possible for finite creatures such as ourselves to participate in the destined attainment of the deity of supremacy and the emergence of the contactable Supreme Being to all finite creatures. This is the supreme challenge, to bring the perfection of eternity and the divinity of paradise out into the evolutionary domains of time and space, domains of unsettled physical development, of imperfect nature and potential evil, where creatures of imperfection make their appearance. The actualizing supreme being is compelled to express himself as a sub-eternal personality by virtue of his own emerging will and purpose in distributing himself to the time-space creations. His emerging being expands with the evolutionary universes and identifies with all creature growth. Let's go to the next citation. Read this, please, Royce.
The supreme is both actual and potential, a being of personal supremacy and of almighty power, responsive alike to creature effort and creator purpose, self-acting upon the universe and self-reactive to the sum total of the universe, and at one and the same time, the supreme creator and the supreme creature. The deity of supremacy is thus expressive of the sum total of the entire finite.
I hope you guys are getting excited about this concept. And again, we're going to keep learning on it. This is something you want to chew on like good food. It takes a while to fully digest it, but that's okay. We're not alone. Each one of us here, we can work with each other to do that process. Continue on. Now, the evolutionary growth of man and supreme is in many ways a reciprocated process. I call reciprocity. What is given is also received. When Jesus bestowed himself on our world, he gave us a perfect example of what human life can be. But he received in reciprocity just as much enjoyment to learn what a human being is. And he embraced his humanity along with his divinity. It's a two-way process of reciprocity. He grows as we grow, and we grow as an integral part of his growth. As the supreme being evolves within the grand universe, all finite reality within the grand universe grows with him. When this process reaches full completion in the far distant future, when all original experience and growth within the supreme being is forever exhausted, there are no more potentials to be actualized. The supreme being will have actualized as a contactable person of deity that we will all perceive and know. Finite at this point of the end of the first universe age, finite at this point of emergence, experience will then such end as now being no more further potentialities, that it is all actualized in perfection. The reality of finite cosmos originates within the eternal purposes of the Universal Father. These purposes are brought to fruition in time and space, and the total and the evolved finite is culminated in the Supreme. The deity of the Supreme is the great avenue through which the love of the Father flows outward to all creation, and the Supreme is the great avenue through which finite creatures pass inward in their quest of the Father, who is love. I'm going to continue on because we do want to get a sense of time and space, and so that we have this. And I know this is a lot of stuff to understand at this point, but it's a good start. Let me go to the first part. Here we go. And, yeah, whoops. Let me go up a little bit. My hand is jumping around. Let's get here. And there you are, Royce.
The source of universe reality is the infinite. The material things of finite creation are the time-space repercussions of the paradise pattern and the universal mind of the eternal God. Causation in the physical world, self-consciousness in the intellectual world, and progressing selfhood in the spirit world. These realities, projected on a universal scale, combined in eternal relatedness, and experienced with perfection of quality and divinity of value, constitute the reality of the Supreme.
So we're getting used to this language. You know, the forward is a definition of language. They take the human language and then they redefine the terminology of new ways of looking at these concepts. I always say, I don't ever get anybody to start at the forward. What you need to do is read the book first and then go to the forward, because there's so much in there. So, but again, here, these are the gems of concepts that I love sharing with you guys, because it is important for us to understand our reality. Now, on Paradise, the status of time and space is absolute and without qualification. Paradise is essentially timeless and spaceless. It functions outside of space and before time. As one proceeds from the absolute unity of paradise into the created universe of time and space begins to be perceptible in growing association and coordination with one another. The finite level of the Supreme is set apart by time-space limitations. We're not existential. This is all process. Mortal mind is sensitive to the sequence of events in time and is subject to the mechanisms and energies of space. Limitations, boundaries. Natural events occurring in time and space are the, quote, the inevitable stop moments in the exhibition of the ever-moving reel. It's like a movie reel of infinity picturization. Now, that's a handful right there, but that is quite a statement. This linear sequencing of time against the backdrop of the circle of eternity allows, quote, the mortal finite mind to catch a fleeting glimpse of divine reality in time and space. Natural events occur with a purposed momentum within the time-space continuum of supremacy, because they represent, quote, a thread of perfection from the circle of eternity. Isn't that poetic? It's hard to understand, but it is beautiful language. There exists within the Supreme the principles of causality, continuity, whereby there is an unending response of effect to antecedent action, potentials becoming actuals, and of ideational causality, whereby the evolution of the conceptual relationships arise from a pre-existent potential within the unlimited potentials of deity expression. That's a mouthful. The finite mind of man views divine reality within the deity realm of supremacy as sequences, not a linear continuity, but sequenced interruptions in the perfect continuity of eternity. Mortal vision views the phenomenon of nature through unaided, quote, natural eyes. All mortal experience within time and space is a projected derivative of absolute deity reality. The human personality in time and space is itself, and here's a beautiful language that goes right to Plato, the image shadow of the personality of the Universal Father. And I'm going to let you go to the next one here. Let me get down. And Royce, would you kindly, whoops, darn, let's get back up here. There you go.
Yeah. Physical matter is the time-space shadow of the paradise energy shining of the absolute deities. Truth meanings are the mortal intellect repercussions of the eternal word of deity, the time-space comprehension of supreme concepts. The goodness values of divinity are the merciful ministries of the spirit personalities of the universal, the eternal, and the infinite to the time-space finite creatures of the evolutionary spheres.
Once again, this language is powerful stuff. It's such a joy to read these concepts with such perfect expression of concept. And that's why, again, our experience with this book is so exciting. Within the created universe of time and space, we experience the process of potential reality becoming actual reality. But on Paradise and in eternity, all potentials are perceived as actuals. It's an interesting perspective. The sensitivity to time within the framework of space gives finite man the perceptual capability to comprehend relative reality. The fact that deity is everywhere and ever present, ubiquitous is the term, in the universe of universes, provides the necessary link that establishes an opportunity for man to comprehend his finite existence within the full scope of creation. Let's go to the next citation here. Can you read that okay, Joyce?
Yes. Only by ubiquity could deity unify time-space manifestations to the finite conception. For time is a succession of instants, while space is a system of associated points. You do, after all, perceive time by analysis and space by synthesis. You coordinate and associate these two dissimilar conceptions by the integrating insight of personality. Of all the animal world, only man possesses this time-space perceptibility. To an animal, motion has a meaning, but motion exhibits value only to a creature of personality status.
Now, this idea of an expression of instance, both time and space are not continuous. There is not a continuity of flow. There is a stop motion. You ever see one of those things where you have a bunch of images and you roll them back, and like a movie screen, you get all those images now coming into a procession. Now, it's not continuous. It is one stop motion at a time. But when we perceive, say, a movie, we don't see each of the individual shots. We see it as a continuity. That is our time-space understanding, but they're telling us that space and time is not a continuity of eternal in between. It is a stop motion from one moment to the next moment to the next moment, and we just see it as a continuity, but in reality, it is not. There's another citation here. We'll get to further explain that. So let me go over here. The time-space challenges to man's growing personal consciousness are subject to being overcome by growth of spiritual insight. Personality is the only reality in the time-space creations that can transcend the material sequence of temporal events. In the process of spiritualizing his being, man can effect a partial transcending of time-space relativity. The ascending mortal of time and space experiences the expanding of consciousness and the enhancement of reality perception. His conceptual grasp of time-space reality will begin to approximate an understanding of the timeless and spaceless reality, deity reality. And here it is again here. Here's some images on what I'm talking about. There is, according to Einstein, that space-time is a fabric of mesh of individual points that we see as a continuity, but it is not. It is a moment to moment to moment of instances and of expressions of time-space theory. And they say that time is a succession of instants and space is a system of associated points. Planck had an idea where he even says there is no continuity of time or length or anything like that. There is a minimum of succession of moments. And here's an interesting citation here. Time is the stream of flowing temporal events perceived by creature consciousness. Time is the name given to the succession arrangement whereby events are recognized and segregated. Whew, that's a lot. We're going to get some discussion. I know that we went through this a lot, but right now, as I said, I'm interested in what your original expectations were on understanding the Supreme Being, but I want to continue as you continue to grow in your consciousness and recognition of the true nature of the emerging Supreme Being. And again, I express as we go along here, create your own study questions on this topic. Share it with all of us. I said in my overview of my video, I said, keep a notebook. When you read about these things, write down your thoughts, your aha moments, your questions, because if you don't, it's like a dream. When you wake up, the dream feels real. But with literally like the dew or the mist, the fog of a mountain in the morning sun dissipates. And our understanding of those moments of dream sequencing and experience start to fade very quickly. That's why I really encourage, write your notes down in a book, because then you have it. You don't lose it. So I'm going to stop share here, guys. That was a lot, and I'm sorry we went through a lot, but I hope that I put it in a way that becomes better understandable. Now, I'm going to ask anybody who has a comment, please raise your hand. Oh, okay, Royce, you do, but raise your electronic hand as well so I can keep you in the queue. Royce, you have first shot at it.
Yes. I wanted to say, when I listened to your recorded preparation for the class, I thought there was a very good idea when you said, take what you're reading and write down your notes immediately to it. So what I did was I printed out the page as I'm reading it, and then I'm highlighting things in yellow, but then I had the questions and comments are here on little Post-its. So, but this is my immediate response to the read. Now, I saw what we went over in this just now, sprinkled throughout all of these pages of the reading list. You've culled it together, but I spotted each one as I did it. The first one that I had, and it's because we've been talking about this, trying to understand what it is, and to come to a better understanding of what it is, how it works, and why it's different. And in the first one, it says, let me pull up the page. While God the Supreme, God the Ultimate, and God the Absolute are actualizing deity personalities of the post-Havana epics. Now, my question is, how are they using the word personality here? Because we were going over defining what it is for an individual will creature. What do they mean by this, designating personalities to these creatures and concepts?
No, that's great. Thank you, Royce. And in the chat, Mike, you wrote to me personally, but about getting this information. This video will be recorded, and as Ari said at the beginning, will be available to every one of you to rewatch in 2 days, I think, by Saturday. So that's the expectation. Also, as I said, you have access to my God Man Supreme book, which covers everything that I know about this revelation. And so I would say just that's the best way for keeping in contact, Mike, for understanding and revisiting. Today is something I hope when you see this video again, and I would encourage it, give you time to contemplate even more. When you hear it a second time, it's going to make a firmer root system into your consciousness. So I encourage that. Good brother Vincent, I'm glad to see you here.
I apologize. I thought the class started at 12 o'clock my time, and I waited all morning sitting around waiting to go to the class. So how much did I miss? Has this been going on an hour?
It has been, but it's all recorded, Vincent. So by Saturday, you will get access to the video. That's why I love the videoing of these Zoom meetings, because if you miss something, you don't have to have a vacuum there left. You can fill it with the video and reviewing what we did here. So there you go.
I know how to do that. Do I go to the UUI website and somehow find it?
Well, you're part of did you get the mailings today for this Zoom?
I did. And I clicked on, go to the class like we do any UI cafe meeting.
Yeah, I'm going to say you'll be there. Ari will send this out, and I hope she'll put in access so that you can both view it, this video, and download it at the same time. If you don't, come to me and I'll ask Aria for more clarification. But that's the way the process will work.
That's fine. Now, I had a question on what I did here so far, and maybe you can give me a definition or an example of what does circle of eternity mean? Is it something we once the circle's complete, we start over, or is it a spiral? I don't have a grasp of the circle of eternity.
Yeah, the circle of eternity is a poetic term from an existential viewpoint where realities are existential. They're already all there on Paradise. The idea of being in a circle, they use that term because there is a relatedness of the circle of eternity from an existential paradise perspective, that we get little glimpses of images of those dots of moments of that circle of eternity. But I'm going to say it is not a finite circle. It is a poetic image of how basically existential paradise, there is nothing incomplete. It is all there in potential and actual in already absolute perfection. And the term circle of identity, what I would say is when you go to my lexicon, always look at the terms circle of eternity, for instance. You have access to my lexicon, which I go in and give like a little essay on what those terms actually mean and say. Does that help, Vincent?
Is your lexicon in the back of your book? I have your book. Is your lexicon there?
No, it's not, but it is in the class handout. You can get access and even download the whole lexicon itself. If you have problems, as I said, email me, and I'll give you access to my Google storage drive, and so that you can download it yourself. But this has been a love work of my lexicon. It's over a few hundred pages, and
I would love to have that, the lexicon, and thank you for the years of work to put it together, I guess.
good brother. It is my pleasure.
My only one last thing, and then I'll stop talking.
No, that's fine.
How do we use the Supreme now? I assume we don't pray to the Supreme. We can't ask the Supreme to do anything. And I know maybe my concept of the Supreme is, I guess, very limited, but it seems he needs us more than we need him at this moment.
Yeah, I can answer that in one way, and this might help you, Vincent. In the universe today of Nevedon, the local universe, and Orvanton, our seventh super universe, there is not paradise that says this is how it's all going to play out. Yes?
You were frozen for a moment there.
Yeah, I just see that. Okay, can you hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Yeah. What I would say is right now, we are in a point of becoming perfect. And there is no book that Michael has in Nevedon or anywhere in the super universe where it says this is how it all plays out. It is not there. We are the ones who are becoming co-creator of destiny. And even say in Michael's case, he had to go through rebellions in order to learn. He doesn't go and sit there and say, well, this is how it's all going to play out, and this is how I'm going to deal with it. He has original personality exhibition of his prerogatives and his activities and his expressions. So there is no book in anywhere that says this is how you deal with the Lucifer rebellion. It's up to us to figure it out. And when we talk about the Lucifer rebellion, it's a major area that we all work together. One, to see where the error leads to sin in time and space. And then for us, in an agadonter, faithful way and trusting the Father to bring this perfection one step closer to light and life. So that's the big thing. There is no existential absolute book that says, here's the screenplay of life. There is no screenplay. We are co-creating the actual screenplay itself in concert with the emerging supreme being and his emerging consciousness of a total. So it is a goal. There is No, absolutely. The Father gives us the complete freedom to figure these things out. And nowhere do we have access, say, to the future of how things work out, except to our vision and our willingness in love to carry these acts out with the Supreme Being, to driving the error out and becoming more perfect in terms of avoiding now any further expression in time and space to that error. So I'm going to go to Darlene, please.
Okay, I had another question.
Go ahead. It's
No,
okay.
my other question?
Yeah.
Is Father in heaven experiencing us eventually through the Supreme, or is he only experiencing us through our thought adjusters? I'm still trying to figure the current role of the Supreme. Is the Supreme an avatar for the I am? Father in heaven is sitting there, he has none of the experiences that we're going through because he's perfect. And so he wants to have our experiences. Is he getting it through the Supreme ultimately in the end? I'm done now.
Yeah, I'm going to say both, Vincent. He does both of it. One, he wants us, he loves us as children. And he gave us, they used the term of time space reality as an arena and adventure. It is not a script that is already predestined to occur. We are the ones who are actually co-creating destiny of time space perfection. So it's both, the adjuster is his way to be with close to our heart and our soul. But the Supreme Being is expression to the totality of the family of God on a totality basis. And he experiences, you could sit there and say, you know, I am God, I change not, but that's not quite true. He experiences through us a love for us to be co-creators and his true children in the family of God. And we are truly dedicating, remember they say the greatest thing we can do is one, to make it our will, that the Father's will be done. And we have to figure that out. It's not given to us, but we figure it out. And then they also say the greatest thing we can do for the Father is to share our inner life. He accesses us through him. We are not slaves to predestination. He literally is giving us a perfection or an adventure in time and space, and then gives us, out of his love and respect to us, the chance now to contribute to the momentum of his destiny of creation and where it's headed as a momentum. That's the power each of us has. So the fact, don't look at the Father as being disconnected with us. He is actually fully enhanced and connected with everything we do on a personal level. He's not like some faraway reality that we can't access. We're actually dynamic within him. He has a dynamism, which is a great miracle, of being experienced and contributing and being his children. What father knows about their children? He goes through challenges with his children to bring them to adulthood, where they can handle things on a much better way. And that's what he's doing. And he does it with personal love. He is not so far removed as to be disconnected from our own life experiences. He lives and he has a heartbeat with each one of us. And the Supreme Being is sort of that living image of that beautiful conception and perfection of a vision. It's his vision that we begin to share, and then we all strive together to bring out destiny towards light and life perfection. It's a big concept. I wish I could give you more exact understanding of that, Vincent, but it is important. I'm going to go now to Darlene and then John.
Okay. Sometimes I have this real clarity to share. So when Vincent asked about the circle, if you think about a circle can expand continually unbroken. Okay. So that's one of the first dynamics of Corsept of why do they use the word circle so often and give us that picture, that image. Our brain thinks in pictures. So they try to give us as many images that they can. The other thing is, as I'm listening to what we're talking about now with the Supreme, I had this flashback to a time when would have been probably the first part of the 50s, 1950s, when I was a child and I was in the Philippines with my family. And I suddenly started feeling extremely alone. And I just remember started seeing a bubble, a circle come, and it started growing and growing and growing and growing. And it got about out to my peripheral. Well, I couldn't see my hands any longer. It went puff. But it was still there. The circle was there, but inside the circle was an enormous amount of little circles. So that's where I started thinking about the Supreme is being that circle, and we're all those little pieces of circles that are within it, giving it all the experiences. So this is the series that I've started using to help individuals to comprehend what the Supreme is in a child's mind. And it works for all of us at whatever age, because if we just remember, we're all pieces, we're all circles within that circle, and we're interacting and etc. The feeling that happened is I went from extreme loneliness and despair for some odd reason. And when that happened, I was suddenly happy. I was just sitting there enjoying watching my family, my mother and father playing cards and etc. And I was no longer this lonely child. Okay. So I said that I put in the text chat area. One of the things that my mother started teaching me very early on in life was about the skills of writing down things so that we don't forget our experiences. And as I began working with individuals in counseling and etc., I started using what I call the IC and ICY journals. And if we would do that, and that's what you were talking about, your journaling, because it's so important. And the thing that I value the most from my mother is all of these wonderful, wonderful booklets that she kept with all of these experiences. You know, and that's what we're doing for the Supreme, is we're doing what my mother did, gave us these dynamics of keeping it. So this is so important. If we bring this down to real life, what we're doing every day, we begin to realize what we're contributing. So.
No, that's really good. And again, that's why we're doing this class, to share our vision together, new ways of looking at things. I have one last, we're at the end of this session. So John, you have the last word, but I want to apologize. This was a lot to go into today, and I wish we had done more to take our time on it. But next week, when we have our second class, we'll have more time to discuss these things. So write down your information in a notebook, put your questions together, and we will together begin to truly understand this Mount Everest of the emerging Supreme Being and what that really means. So John, you got the last word. Turn your sound on, John.
My apologies, we covered this earlier. I was unavoidably distracted. But what is I'm looking at your definitions in the lexicon. And what is the difference between God the Supreme, Almighty Supreme, and the Supreme Being? Now, in here, you've got a sentence that says, Supreme Being may be crudely thought of as the Almighty Supreme Body, Supreme Mind, and God the Supreme Spirit.
Yeah.
So I don't recall the term Supreme Mind. I guess it must be in there. So can you give us, like, you know, a rough thing of the difference between those three? Or is it really describing the one person just from different perspectives or aspects or something?
Well, consider this, John. We are told that we are created in the image of the Father, which means a body, a soul, a spirit, and of mind comprehension. So we are of a three-point nature, a spirit, mind, and body. That's the individual aspects of us. But The Supreme Being is doing exactly the same thing, but on a macroscopic totality perspective. He has a spirit which is recognized called God the Supreme. And God the Supreme exists in spirit reality, not in creation yet, but on the outer levels of Havona. And we're going to get into that next week. He has a mind where he can actually co-express himself in his own emergence towards perfection. As we do individually, he is doing collectively. He has an active participation in this sense of applied mind, a supreme mind itself. And then he has the Almighty Supreme. This is the idea of bringing into supremacy. For instance, when the Creator Sons finish off their bestowals and they reach a point of Master Son attainment, these are aspects of getting sovereignty of creation. In other words, now he earns his sovereignty no longer as a Creator Son after his seventh bestowal, but becomes a Master Son, which is a whole new definition. But that's really what we're looking at here. We'll get more into it, especially next week. We're going to break down Supreme Mind, Almighty Supreme, and God the Supreme as the three aspects of his coming together in a body of expression. So don't sweat it now. We will get into it next week. But I do want to again apologize. I didn't know how to get as much done today, but I did want to get our personal introductions done. I thought I became finalized in the sense that I thought it was important for us to get to know who we are. So I love you all. I hope this class has been fun and challenging. And remember, you're not alone. We're doing this together. So comments and everything. And next week will be fun. We're going to have fun every single week, guys. So don't sweat it. We're going to be okay.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thanks, Stuart.
Enjoy the eclipse.
Yeah. Stu, before you go, can you get a text presentation and send it to Mike?
Of what? Of what we did
today,
here on the handout?
The 11 page printout.
Yeah, I can send that to him. Mike, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay.
Now, Stuart, is it in your book? I mean, I don't have to say if I could just find it, so because I could go back over and read that. Man, you zapped through that thing, and I got a ton of questions. And I'm sorry, at 74 years old, I ain't got too good of a memory. You know what I mean?
Well, I have it, but I don't have your email. But Stu can send it to you.
Yeah, and Mike, I would say that
Yeah.
again, we have it is available when you go into the course information. All 8 classes are in there, and that's the one I would say you should have access to because it's the whole presentation together. Today, that also has a handout individually for what we did today. So that is in the course. If you go to, they will show you where you can get it and download it when you get into the actual UUI course information.
Is the lexicon there? Is the lexicon in there?
No.
Yes, it is. In the handout, it gives you the full access to the full lexicon that I put together. All right.
Stuart, I'm having problems downloading anything from there. When I click on the link, nothing happens. Like when I try to download stuff, it's like goes into Never Land and doesn't do it. It might be my browser. I'm not sure. I could try to log in with Chrome. Maybe that's the issue. I'm not sure. I went in with Brave browser, and maybe there's an issue there. So I'll try with Chrome. But if I can't download any of the files with Chrome, I'll send you an email if you can then give me your what do you call that, the cloud server, OneDrive, or whatever.
Drive, yes, I have it all on my Google Drive. Send me an email regardlessly of what you would like to download, and I will have it available in my Google Drive storage and give you an access that you can download it directly. Okay.
Are all the handouts that are on the in the UUI available on your site?
Yes, I have one overall handout that gives everything from class 1 through class 8. So you can have access to that. That's a good one, and I'll get you a copy of that. And also, the lexicon, which I think is very helpful. So send me an email. Anybody here, if you have trouble I'm dedicated here to help you all. And I think the download, Google Download is a good way. If you get confused, send me an email, tell me what you want, and I'll work with you and give you access for the downloads. Okay, friends?
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Lee, I'll talk to you later tonight. Lee.
All right. All right, Royce. Yeah, this is going to be a great course. I can already tell. Anything that Stuart does is good. So, I mean, we know, but you know, the Supreme is one of those concepts that really you can splice and dice it to kingdom come, but you always learn something. And the fact that we can share it in a group, that's always the best thing, because with the Supreme, you know, we are talking about pretty difficult concepts to comprehend. And if you want to try to comprehend them at the highest levels, you really do have to talk it out with other people. I don't think you'll be able to absorb it all by yourself. Even if you got 30 or 40 years of experience, you still can learn something by hashing it out with others.
Yeah, and next week we're not going to be confined to just the class 2 aspects of the you know, the information that's in there. Any questions, even regarding today, let's keep them bringing up. This is a dynamic sharing of insights and so on. So let's stay together, be brave. I encourage you all, and I love you deeply, and I can't wait to do this again. This is so much fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, I'm going to take it here.